Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Hey guys.
What a way to start.
Hello internet. Hello sniffly nose. Welcome to the Get Geek podcast. What's going on, y'all? I am Jose.
This is Wolfie.
AJ.
Eli.
And this is Flag Smasher Walt.
And this is a Kleenex napkin joining us to clean up the beginning of the episode. What is going on, y'all, out there? Again, welcome to the Get Geek podcast. Before we get started, we definitely have a great double episode for you this week. But first, our usual disclaimers. We are recording remotely, as always. So if there are any sound issues or artifacts with the podcast, please let us know. You can send some feedback to Instagram at Get Geek Podcast. And of course, you can definitely support your favorite podcast by doing a thing like rate, share, and subscribe to your favorite podcast. You can find us where all your favorite podcasts are sold. So please do us a favor and like, rate, share, and subscribe to the Get Geek podcast. All right. Moving along. What's this little episode we're talking about today?
So we got a double header going on.
Indeed.
We got a double header for you guys. We're going to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But first, we're going to be discussing Mortal Kombat. The long-awaited. Clearly, you guys planned this.
Finish him.
The long-awaited return of the franchise to the silver screen. So, right, it's silver screen for the big one, yeah.
Yeah. Silver screen,
right, cool.
and
So,
HBO Max screens. Where did everybody check it out? I saw it on HBO Max. Didn't one of us go to?
I went to the theater.
What?
Yeah.
It's my first trip to the theater, and it was awesome in all its gloriousness, with the exception of being, told that I have to wear a mask the entire time.
Yeah.
So that kind of, that I didn't necessarily understand because, we have 6 feet clear left and right and front and back because of the way they set everything up. But we'll talk a little bit about my experience and stuff like that in a bit. What did everyone think of the film? What did the boys think of Mortal Kombat? What did AJ think about Mortal Kombat, knowing how deep he is on Mortal Kombat?
He's probably our resident expert on.
So,
MK.
me and Eli were actually talking about it a little bit yesterday. We couldn't help ourselves.
A little bit.
Fine, whatever.
A little bit.
Yeah. So, okay, here's the thing.
I love it when he starts with "Here's the thing."
At first, well, to be honest, I don't mind it because I can see what they're probably going to do with this. But in retrospect, I kind of feel like they used too many characters for a non-tournament movie.
Yeah.
What they should have done was they should have had one dude either hired by Outworld or sent from Outworld to go and try and pick off Earthrealm's fighters, which sometimes they do. And then that'll be like the opening to, okay, so that happened. Oh my God, what are we going to do? These kinds of guys are out there. And then, there is one thing we can do.
Yeah.
Fight the tournament. And, something like that. And so here's where the issue now comes in. Eli specifically, right, had a problem with how many people died.
How many people died?
And
Mortal
to his
Kombat.
credit, it makes sense for some characters, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Full
Spoiler.
disclaimer.
Spoilers.
Go watch the movie now, or else It's on you. Okay, here we go. Sub-Zero dying. Totally understandable. Next generation of Sub-Zero comes in, you get Noob Saibot later.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Prince Goro dying. That was pretty
That-
early.
We got to talk about that. That's got to be a
Yeah.
segment on its own.
Yeah.
Totally.
I have a lot to say.
But
about, well, I have enough to
otherwise,
say about
other
that.
guys. Oh,
No,
sorry,
Kung
what?
Lao.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah.
Other guys like Kung Lao, again, maybe a little early, but I can see where they're going there.
Yeah.
Or AJ, I'm sorry. Doesn't he die in the games as well as a catalyst for something?
Yes,
you
he
know
does
more.
die in the game.
Well, the
Yeah,
the
as a-
original Kung Lao.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a catalyst for the story. So I agree. I can see why he was chosen for this particular death, I guess to say.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Kano dying, to be honest, it makes sense. He's not.
A little bit, yeah.
He's big in some ways, but he's not like this super huge like guy like Goro or Shang Tsung.
He's foil for Sonya Blade.
Yeah,
Or
Yeah.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as deaths go, those are the only ones that I guess were the most impactful. I mean, Cabal, again, that's another one-off character. There's still a whole entire host of Outworld characters you can ring in.
Reptile.
But basically, what I'm trying to get at, and I'll throw this to Eli, since I know I'm talking a lot now. The reason why I think they killed some of these characters off is because NetherRealm doesn't have the fullest roster. And Mortal Kombat is a tournament between all the realms. I mean, you haven't seen a lot of Chaos Realm. That'd be pretty cool to see. But generally, it is between Earthrealm, Outworld, and NetherRealm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how do you bolster NetherRealm's ranks? Well, introduce the Revenants. And that's my 2 cents on that aspect of the movie. Now,
Okay.
Eli, what do you
You mean your 50 cents?
50 cents.
think?
I was a little bit more harsher to the movie. Actually, I was a lot more harsher to the movie. It sucked, and I think that
It sucked?
yes, it sucked.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, in terms of a video game adaptation, that was a straight A+. But for a regular movie, it sucked. It was not good
Okay.
because it felt just like so rushed. Like AJ said, too many characters were dying, and I felt that yes, there may be a way to like bring them back and stuff, but it's just too early to do stuff like that because you don't want to be killing characters off and then let's just say, oh, let's just justify their deaths with let's just turn them into zombies for the next movie, and that just seems too early and stuff. And
Okay.
the plot wasn't even too good in my opinion. I felt the Hanzo Hasashi portion that segment was like really really on point, and I really love that section. But like everything else, it was just like meh. And Cole Young, what the frick was he there for? I don't get it. But anyway, Walt or whoever wants to go.
Okay.
Yeah, go Walt.
Okay, I'll go. I kind of agree with a lot of what Eli said. It was interesting that Warner Brothers decided to drop the first 7 minutes of the movie because, in my opinion, those first 7 movies were the highlight of the movie. I mean,
The first 7 minutes.
yeah, the first 7
Yeah.
minutes. That whole piece with Sub-Zero and quote unquote Hanzo Hasashi Hasashi, right?
Hasashi.
Hasashi,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Scorpion. That really, when I saw that part, I was like, wow, we're going to be in for something special. And then the rest of the movie happened, and I was pretty disappointed. The plot was non-existent for me. And again, Cole Young, what in the world was he there for? I mean, literally, you could have had a dozen characters from the Mortal Kombat movie, for the Mortal Kombat universe, and put him in that role. You didn't need him. He played, you know, first of all, his costume when he changed was horrendous. You know,
Yeah, it looked cheap.
it was just he really served no point whatsoever. You want to say that he's kind of like the surrogate for the audience? Fine, I get it, but you know what? Don't don't dumb us down by putting this guy on the screen and saying that he's going to be leading us through this universe, because you know what? It made no sense whatsoever. I will say this: the choreography was good. Anybody who's a fan of the games, you got what you wanted with some of the fatalities, the gore and all that other stuff. But that plot, especially given how much lore there is for Mortal Kombat, that plot was substandard.
I thought you were going to say Sub-Zero.
I know. I left it hanging there. What do you guys think?
I think that so again, I do agree with a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about. I want to really talk about Goro, but I want to leave that for a separate segment. I kind of want to talk about Goro because I feel like the way that what happened with Goro is a huge deal in my opinion, and after we're done giving our opinions, I think that's the first thing we got to tackle, to be honest. But personally, I agree with you. The first 7 minutes of the film was amazing. When I saw the trailers, I thought that, I was for sure in my head, I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get the Scorpion Sub-Zero whole storyline, backstory, the whole nine, the Hanzo Hasashi, story and everything, and it was phenomenal,
Yeah.
And yeah, we got the rest of the movie, and then this is where I have the biggest issues with the movies. Like, yes, there was a lot of personally, I feel like plot was a little bit too thin, considering how much lore there is. Some characters were overacted and some underacted. I think Liu Kang's character was very, very over the top, especially from the very beginning. I felt like the way that he was portraying Liu Kang was just too over the top. And then Sonya Blade, I felt, was a little underacted, as far as the quality. Because to me, when you overact and under, that breaks the realism for me. I can tell that they're amateurs, right? The choreography was awesome, and I don't agree with a lot of the deaths. And my biggest issue that I had was how they did this quote unquote tournament. I think it was sure they don't want to do a tournament, we're going to bring the tournament to them. That I think worked cool as a plot device, but then we get basically the whole tournament in 5 minutes.
It wasn't really even a tournament if you think about it.
Yeah, no, they just jumped them.
Yeah,
one-on-one jump them. That's it. Yeah.
They found him in an alley.
And it's kind of funny that it's all right, Shang Tsung, he's not playing by the rules, but it's yo, Raiden, you can send anyone anywhere, right? AKA not play by the rules either. So I don't know.
He plays the moral high ground. So
yeah, he just decided to go down that high ground a little bit.
So okay, so Raiden, for me, Raiden was a cool character. One of the things that breaks the movie for me is how his powers work, because his ability to teleport people could have worked at any point in the movie. What are the rules behind that? Can he not do it for certain reasons? At the end, Shang Tsung shows up and he just sends him away. Get out of my house, dude. He teleports him away like nothing. This is something
I think it's the whole moral.
I
think it's the whole moral high ground kind of thing that Walter says. He's choosing not to because he's trying to play by the Mortal Kombat rules.
Yeah, they're not supposed to get involved. I think he mentioned that a couple of times in the movie.
Yeah, but he got involved at almost every turn, though. His characterization, he was always involved from the very beginning. Training people is getting involved. Doing all that stuff is getting involved. He was involved. So his characterization was
that training
way off for me. It was
you know what?
None of that made sense to me. His whole.
I think that it does make sense the way that they did it, because the tournament didn't actually officially happen, and he's not supposed to get involved in the tournament. But outside of that, I think that's how they justified it. No,
it's weak. It's really weak.
Yeah. It is weak. It is weak. That's the whole thing about this movie. The plot is kind of weak.
The logic behind how he makes those decisions is very weak to me. And the idea that they're not supposed to get involved, sure, but everybody in the movie breaks that rule several times, not just Shang Tsung. Like they all kind of break that rule.
Yeah.
And the other thing, like for me with the film, that seems like a missed opportunity is you guys all said the first few minutes are pretty freaking awesome, right? I want to comment that I actually think that the movie we saw like last year, the animated movie Scorpion's Revenge, actually does it better. Even though I thought that the Scorpion Sub-Zero storyline was good in this one, I thought that movie did it better. I thought it was. I'm gonna give away the ghost at this point and say that I thought that was actually a better movie overall.
It was.
Yeah.
And the thing that I also kind of messed me up in this movie, I have to say, is the fight choreography, as Walt said, is really, really good. The direction was terrible. And I'll give you an example.
Yes.
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
When Sub-Zero and Scorpion are fighting at the end of the film, and they're kind of fighting over the spear, they're kind of wrapping each other up in the spear and like tossing each other around. There's that point where kind of Scorpion like wraps the spear around and tosses Sub-Zero, and it seems like a small thing, but you see him wrap the spear around his wrist, and then you see Sub-Zero go through the wall. You don't see any of the like moment in between that gives that moment more like, I don't know, like something more kinetic for that action scene. So there's a lot of moments like that in the movie where they do these weird cuts and like, again, great choreography, but they just don't film it right. They don't give it the power that it deserves. And as sort of a final point to kind of reference it based on those first 7 minutes, the first 7 minutes I was excited about in the same way I'm kind of excited about what I've seen so far from the Shang-Chi trailer. It looks like they're taking a lot of influence, or at least in Mortal Kombat in the beginning, it felt like they were taking a lot of influence from like Asian cinema, Asian martial arts cinema, which I thought would have been sick for Mortal Kombat. I thought it would have been great to like kind of mix those two genres together. And they like kind of did that at the beginning and then didn't deliver on that promise, I feel like. And I hope Shang-Chi does that, because that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about it from the trailer so far.
Yeah.
So for me, it was fun. I don't agree with Eli that it was like really, really bad or really crappy. I enjoyed it. I'd probably watch it again. It's probably like right on that cusp for me, because there's some parts that I really did enjoy, but it just gets progressively worse, honestly, as the movie goes on. It starts off really well, and then it kind of like fails on that promise by the end.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you on that. I thought personally, I actually thought all the action was really, really good. The choreography was awesome. I also wanted to point out, like, I love the little callbacks, like Liu Kang wearing the original like costume from the very first Mortal Kombat. Sorry, I'm seeing like something in front of me. I have no idea. I might have to cut that out later. I got distracted from my thought. No, the little thing that like when they first started doing the training and they were doing the sweeps, and it was like, is that the only movie you got? They basically recreated like the video game, like how like noobs play the video game.
Do your uppercut,
you know?
Yeah.
You know, not just that, not just the uppercut, but like the sweep, like jumping over the sweep, and then making them miss and then sweeping them anyway. It's just like the original video game. I love that. But Goro was one of the biggest letdowns for me. We're talking about in the very first game. I don't know if you guys remember playing Goro back then, but it was like near impossible to beat Goro in the arcade. It was practically impossible. And then the first movie, the first Mortal Kombat movie, you know, made Prince Goro, you know, the one of the hardest, just destroying, tossing people left and right. And then in this one, also kind of presented that way. Prince Goro, thank you for, you know, thank Shao Kahn for allowing his blood to, you know, to join in the fight and this, that, and the other. And then he gets beat by the new guy outside of the tournament, before the climax of the movie even happened.
Fairly easily, too.
Before he realized what his power was to begin with.
Before he even, yeah, exactly.
Before Goro could even speak, almost.
Yeah.
He had nearly no lines in this movie.
It was funny to me because, like, I know that this is supposed to be Mortal Kombat. I know we're supposed to suspend some disbelief and that there was some supernatural elements to this, but you can't tell me, like, when I felt that Cole getting his face punched in by Goro didn't make sense before he got his power, and he should have just had his head smashed in at that point. Like, Goro could have crushed him. That's what I wanted to see, kind of like Goro, at least really maybe injure him, something. But he was punching him in the face, holding him up in the air, like choking him, and it was just like getting
Tossing
punched
him,
by a
throwing
regular
him.
guy. Yeah,
Oh, but
Yeah.
you
like
forget
Kano
he's
flung Sonya as
descendant
far
from
at one point
you
in the
forget,
fight.
you forget he's descended from Scorpion.
Yeah, I know, but
Ooh, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
but
Like,
there was no
wow.
inkling that he had that ability. I mean, we're supposed to like
Yeah.
obviously believe in it, but it's still there was still something wrong with that moment for me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you know, maybe he could have gotten punched like kind of a little bit, and then we could have seen him get his power, and then Goro could have pounded on him to add a little more dramatic elements to the fight. But when he was getting pounded on early on, it just seemed weird to me, even though I'm supposed to suspend that disbelief.
So, yo, what do you guys think of the characters' powers and how they worked? Because I was very on the edge about that.
Especially Cole Young,
Yeah.
especially during that fight with Goro.
No, but also like Kano and
No,
Sonya
the way they
Blade.
get it.
Yeah.
is
Oh well,
what-
yeah. The way they
get
get
oh
it is
god,
weird.
oh
But
my god, I
hated
hate it.
Just-
I hate it so much.
just looking at Cole Young, and even Eli and AJ mentioned it when he first got it. Did we think that he was getting like this Wakanda type suit where the kinetic energy
Yes.
would build?
Yeah.
But then they never went back to that.
Yeah,
What
Yeah,
was the
it was like,
purpose
why is
of
it
that?
turning red?
he just
Why is it
charged
like
it up
glowing?
at the end of the fight, and then did like a cool punch or whatever, and won.
Hey, whatever.
Is there any AJ? Is there any reference to anything like this in Mortal Kombat lore? As our resident Mortal Kombat expert,
Technically, there is precedent.
I thought there was,
Gathered there must be.
and that's how I was like, wait a minute, do I know this character from an older Mortal Kombat? I don't know.
Well, no, it's not so much that it's a character, but the way they're introducing having specific arcanas.
Yeah,
They technically did play with that, but only with one or two characters in Mortal Kombat X. Because in the very beginning of the story in Mortal Kombat X, Shinnok is invading Earthrealm. And one of the things that happens is, so, everyone's invading, and it finally falls to Johnny Cage, of all people, to fight Shinnok. Ends up turning out that he unlocks a power there
Mhm.
and beats Shinnok.
But
It's not exactly the same, but to say that there haven't been characters in Mortal Kombat unlocking some kind of bizarre ability isn't that's never happened before. It has. Taking it to this level, though, I don't know, because I kind of like Kano's whole like metal eye.
Which we
thing.
never got in this movie.
Yeah, no.
yeah, yeah.
The way I reconcile this, and again, when you have to do this with movies, it shows you poor screenwriting. The way I reconcile this is that you can't have these guys running around with powers, because then it kind of, they're basically superheroes. So having them quote unquote turn on because the tournament is coming, I guess you can make a case for
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
again, if you have to reach to get to that point without the movie informing you of that, then that is a failure on the movie's part, because they're not telling you the reason why. It's just, oh, guess what? You've been branded. Now we're going to turn on your powers because the tournament is close. You didn't get that sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's another thing. I don't like how closed doors they're making the tournament. Like before, you had what you had and you went in with that. It's not
Mhm.
like you had to have this thing and you had to have a power or else you were going to fail. Sonya Blade in the games doesn't have any powers.
Yeah,
She just has all these
Yeah, I
cool
know.
gadgets
Yeah.
she uses.
Johnny Cage doesn't even have
That's-
powers.
But
Well,
that's
you're wrong.
that's
Not
also what
anymore.
always made Mortal Kombat. That's
I
also what
literally
always
just
made
talked
Mortal
about
Kombat
that in
cool.
Mortal Kombat 10.
Johnny
That's-
Cage?
what?
Were you not listening?
I thought you were talking about somebody else.
No,
I
Johnny
literally
Cage.
said Johnny Cage, bro.
What? Johnny Cage got powers?
Yes.
What? What powers?
He basically has this like green. I don't know
green
how to
orb.
explain it.
Oh God, yeah. forget it. I
Guys,
know what
this
that
is
So
this is my household every night. So just so you know.
so that's that's kind of one of the things that always made Mortal Kombat cool as far as the story and lore goes is that like here they're invading Earth, that's like this weakling kind of world, and just these normal humans and stuff like that, and they end up defying the odds, right? Like normal humans that are beating these otherworldly kind of monsters basically and stuff. But like now, when you turn it into like, hey, like just like AJ said, that you have to be chosen and you have to unlock your arcana. You basically have to kind of stop being representing the normal human race. So it kind of disconnects from that. It makes it less special.
It's silly. It's like they're Super Saiyans mixed with Highlanders. They get angry or they kill somebody, and like that's how they get their powers. Because that's Kano got angry, right? And Sonya got her power when she killed Kano.
Oh yeah, the whole other thing that like there's a special kind of something very specific that has to happen. Yeah, it's actually it's like Super Saiyan. Something has to happen for you to turn it to unlock your power.
Yeah, because Cole got his power when his family was under threat, right? It was like watching Krillin get blown up by Frieza, and Kano just got mad, and he was like, "I'm angry."
I gotta say about I gotta say something about Kano, and
I
this
like
is
Kano,
gonna
though,
maybe
actually.
like it's gonna anger some people though. I feel like, but the way that I saw it, I was like, obviously the way that it worked, he was being very derogatory, and he was being racist. And they saw that as a moment to like, hey, let's use this to unlock his power and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, did this movie just encourage racism? Because they enabled it in order for him to get his arcana.
Only if you lose,
Think about
only
it.
if you learn a lesson from it, I guess, or unlock powers from it.
And then it didn't even pay off because obviously, which is, I would have been surprised if he actually did stay on Earth's side. I thought that would have been a cool kind of, change. Like, let's keep him, but he did the predictable, like, stab him in the back. He's a mercenary. He's Kano. It's what Kano does.
It would have been fun if he stayed around and betrayed them later. I think that would have been more fun. It would have been a better character arc.
Jumping back and forth, right?
Yeah.
It should have happened. It should have happened in the actual tournament. I think that the way the story should have worked was, they wanted to like start Mortal Kombat before they were ready and all that stuff. Not try to kill them before Mortal Kombat actually happens. And the way they could have done that is like, Kano forces the tournament to start.
They could have done something different. And of course, we're talking about the obvious sequel that they set up here because they end the movie on the idea that the tournament still hasn't happened. Raiden's still alive. Shang Tsung is still alive. He's all like, nah, I'm going to come back and destroy you. Which is
technically there's supposed to be like 4 more movies, right?
Yeah, they said
the dude that played Bihan is signed up for 4 total or 4 more.
4 more. Joe Townsend is his name.
And it's and that includes like spin-offs, right? Because I think I read something that it's like Mortal Kombat movies and spin-offs.
Possible. I don't know.
So we're gonna have like a Sub-Zero movie.
Yes.
Like it'd be, this could be rectified if this is a setup, like an appetizer, to open up like a Scorpion movie and a Sub-Zero movie, to then kind of retell, like actually dive into those stories without diving into the Mortal Kombat lore itself.
Don't you think,
I think that'd be cool.
Don't you think it would have been better served to start with that instead of starting with this?
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're looking at it almost like in a DC world where it's like the first thing we get is Batman versus Superman before we even introduce Batman.
Yeah.
That's true. But the thing is, like, in that, it doesn't necessarily work because I feel like everyone does know Batman and stuff, whereas not everyone really knows Mortal Kombat.
Well,
like
that's why I say maybe they should have been better served starting with a Scorpion or Sub-Zero or both, to kind of introduce everybody to the whole Mortal Kombat thing. The people that are still on the fence on the property and stuff, and then you can build on that. You've already started from a very, very positive place because I think everybody here agrees the Sub-Zero Scorpion thing is probably the meatiest part of Mortal Kombat. So I think if that was the case, maybe you should have started there first.
Yeah, a lot of this was just mainly fan service. Like,
there's a part where like the amulet of Shinnok, which basically sets up the entire story. As of right now. And it's like nobody knows what the hell that is, but we had to point it out just to like,
honestly,
I think all that stuff will be pointed out.
I know, but
but that would have been something good to go over in like a Scorpion and Sub-Zero movie, because in Scorpion's backstory, the reason why he gets killed is because Quan Chi, like a a stooge of Shinnok basically hires Sub-Zero to off
Right.
his family.
Right.
So
Like
you
what we saw
could have
in
played
Scorpion's
with the
Revenge.
notion there, like you see Quan Chi holding it and it's like, it's all part of a grander scheme. I don't know, something like that.
Well, AJ, I have a question for you because I have another possible direction that I would have liked to have seen this movie go, even that would have maybe expanded Mortal Kombat a little bit better. Have any of the games or storylines taken place before the 10th tournament? Like, have they ever shown the 8th and 9th, like any of the previous tournaments or any of the backstory? Because that might be interesting. I mean, that's just my opinion. Like, maybe they could expand on what the
Technically,
9th
that
tournament was, you know?
Technically, that would have been the first few games because
Right.
if I remember correctly, the original Kung Lao actually didn't have the hat. He was
Mhm.
actually a Liu Kang type. So that was, and that Kung Lao actually, interestingly enough, is referenced in the older Mortal Kombat movie. So,
okay.
like, they play with that there. So, technically, you could have done something like that here.
That's I think that would have been a slightly better way to start off the series, because then you don't have to use all of the signature characters like a lot of the ones that they used in this movie. You could save them
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
fans. Might be a good way to do it. I don't know if you guys think that would work, but oh, I just wanted to mention the one cool Easter egg that I noticed very quickly. Did you guys notice when Jax asked Cole Young about beating the champion Eddie Tobias?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a cool Easter
reference
egg.
to the creators. Anyways, yeah, I felt like I needed to say that because I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead, guys.
Bo Raicho is canon. Bo Raicho is here. The drunken master.
Well, it's a shame because they also teased Nightwolf, but he looks like he
really?
was part of a past tournament.
Yeah, he looked like he was killed. He was the one that was like Kano killed him and got the mark. So
And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up because that's the one question I wanted to ask you guys before we wrap up. Did anybody have an issue with the fact that if you kill somebody, you get the mark?
Yes.
Yes.
yeah.
I think
I
that
just-
whole system is.
I have
like,
issue with the mark.
Like the
was
whole-
Well, yeah, but even that, but it's even worse. It's magnified by the fact that if you kill the supposed champion of Earth, you then become the champion of Earth.
Like the whole point is that this is an exclusive event,
Exactly.
but now you're making it so that the very people you want to keep out are now in.
Yeah.
Like, I
mean,
mean, I
I-
guess the logic follows that if you're strong
Yeah.
enough to kill one of Earth's champions, then hey, you should be a champion. But what if it's like
But then
somebody like Kano?
But then, if you were strong enough to beat the champion, then why did the mark choose the other person in the first place?
It's a very bad system.
I'll I think that I want to get into our final points before we move on to the next topic and all that, but just on that the whole thing with the mark, I think it works from a business standpoint. If Mortal Kombat, the tournament, is a business, how do you keep the tournament going? By keep making sure that the mark passes on, so there's a new champion to like have to be a new tournament, you know what I mean, all the time.
So, does the mark pass on to Otherworld and Netherrealm, or is it just to
It
Earthrealm?
No, I think it does, doesn't it? And so then the less champions that you have on that realm, the easier it is to win the tournament and take over the realm.
Yeah, that's a flawed, because what happens if one side gets wiped out completely? Then you have no champions.
Mortal Kombat isn't necessarily fair. It's Mortal Kombat.
I think for Raiden, it's motivation enough that they're gonna like completely overtake Earthrealm and like kill everybody and take over. Like, I think that's enough motivation. I don't think you need a mark from a business standpoint in general when everybody's gonna die. If you don't
No, not from a business as a film and a property.
No, I know.
I'm saying like
as the
like
Mortal
in its
Kombat
world.
business.
Yeah, in its world, right? Like in the lore. How do you keep Mortal Kombat going?
The other thing to kill everybody.
No,
That's
but
a good
the
enough
other
way.
thing too. Yeah, but then like, why have a tournament at all then?
Because
I think
everybody will die
if
you
we
don't.
think about it, hold on.
Mortal
If we
Kombat
think
doesn't
about it,
entirely make
if we
sense.
listen, exactly. If we think about it, this is a very, very dumb idea. It's like, hey, like I am in control of all these other realms, and I can just
I have
invade,
giant armies.
but I have to have a stupid tournament in secret.
Who made
not
this
only
tournament?
that,
Whose
you
god's
have to
idea was
win-
this?
You have to win
And you
10
have to
in a
win
row.
10.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah.
It's not
Exactly.
just
So
one
like,
tournament.
so let's not
Decimate your
let's
opponent.
not kid ourselves and say that like it doesn't make sense, or Mortal Kombat in general doesn't make sense. Anyway,
I know.
I'll use that as my final thought and my rating. I think that this movie was a solid 7, to be honest with you. I think that the action was really good. I think that the that some storyline setups were. I think that the movie was set up clearly to develop a universe. You know, maybe not as well done, but then again, maybe they don't have DC and Marvel money to do a really well set up universe. And I definitely am going to rewatch this probably 1 or 2 more times easily, just because I did have fun, even though a lot of it was kind of crappy. But yeah, I'll give it a 7, and definitely gonna rewatch. So, Jose,
Yeah, so I want to use I use a similar system in terms of rating as you do. I feel like if something gets like a 6.5 or higher, it's worth a rewatch, and if it gets anything lower than that, it's barely worth a rewatch, or if anything, it's worth maybe watching moments from it. So this is going to get a 6.5 from me. It's not a bad movie. Um, it's better than I expected, to be honest with you, because like we've kind of all said, Mortal Kombat, it's a fun story, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. So setting it up in a movie can be difficult, which is something that clearly they had challenges with in this movie. So it was a solid 6.5 for me. I think the special effects were a little rough at times too, which was a little weird for me. I thought they were good, really good at some points, and then really bad at other points. Goro.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, the fight choreography was good. Some of the dialogue choices were weird. I think Wolfie mentioned this earlier. Thematically, there was a lot of difference between certain characters, or maybe this was kind of tying into what you said about underacting and overacting. That made
Yeah.
things weird, because then you had a character like Kano who, yeah, he was over the top, weird, silly, kind of cliche, but I enjoyed him. And then you had a
Yeah.
character like Sonya, like you said, who was kind of boring. Or Jax,
Very.
who was really boring, who could have been he was way cooler in the games. Jax is so much
Yeah,
cooler, and he was
yeah.
just pretty boring in this game. He was basically on a hospital bed for like half of the movie. So there's potential there. They flubbed a few things. I can see a better movie in the future if they balance out some of the things that they did a little bit wrong on this one. So yeah, for me, it's a solid 6.5. Eli, what did you think of this movie?
Well, you
Oh
guys.
God!
No,
Here
no,
we
no,
go.
no. Well, you
Bring up the
guys
middle.
sort of changed. Surprisingly enough, you guys sort of changed my opinion on it being terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it had its highlights. I mean, it wasn't a totally bad movie, but I mean, it was still pretty bad. So I'll give it like a 5 out of 10. That's pretty fair, right? That's pretty fair.
I'd say
That's
fair.
that's
fake
more
one.
fair than I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna be.
I thought we were in the 2s here with Eli.
Yeah. Oh, whatever.
All right, and I guess I'll go next. Again, I'm gonna pretty much echo what everyone else has said here. It had some really great moments, and there was some really nice little Easter eggs. I was like, they're gonna do this probably. But then there were other things, other decisions they made that just kind of they were not good, and they kind of it. I wanted to enjoy this movie so much more, but and I did enjoy it a lot at first, but now kind of going through it, it's kind of muckied my outlook on it. So I don't know. I was gonna give it a 7. No, you know what? I think I'll stick with 7 because I still really did enjoy it. But were it not for that and all the mistakes they made, I was like this close to giving it a 6.5. But I'm gonna keep it a 7.
It's just half a mark.
Pretty
All right,
close, yeah.
I'm going to bring up the rear on this one. and I'm gonna put my black hat on, because I find the comments on our reviews interesting, especially in the light of the comments that we had for Godzilla versus Kong, because I find that this movie is similar in the same points, but there was a little bit more hate for Godzilla versus Kong than this one. I can go down the line with this. Plot points, not great. Action, highlight. The reason why we watch a Mortal Kombat movie is the fights. Whereas over here, Mortal Kombat, the movie, we're like, yeah, this was pretty decent. I'll watch it again. Whereas Godzilla versus Kong, it's like, nah, don't need to watch it again. So, like I said, I'm putting on my black hat here. That being said, though, I did expect a lot more of this movie, especially after those 7 minutes. Those 7 minutes by far teased a spectacular version of Mortal Kombat, and then the rest of the movie let us down spectacularly. Um, again, all the reasons that I mentioned before, plot points were sporadic at best and disappointing, given the fact that Mortal Kombat has so much lore to grab from, and you still couldn't put something that made sense onto the film. Again, the action grabbed us. You know, the Easter eggs and the callbacks to the game grabbed us. You know, the choreography was good, just like Jose said before. The directorship of the film, spotty. I'm gonna go with a 6.5 for this film, and I will watch it again. But it's not. I will say this. I rewatched the original one, and the plot in that one is way more
Yeah.
coherent
Superior.
than
Yes.
this one.
All right. Well, there you have it.
Indeed.
Anyway, we're gonna break for a little ad real quick before we come to the next topic.
Indeed.
And we're still working on our super professional ads. So our ad is about to kick in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, y'all, just a couple of quick mentions as before. We are recording remotely, so if you hear any sound issues or artifacts, or you think my voice is particularly annoying, go to Get Geek Podcast on Instagram. Give us some feedback. Let us know. Feedback is awesome. We always appreciate it. And as always, the best way to support your favorite podcast crew is to like, rate, share, and subscribe to the Get Geek Podcast. You can find us where all of your favorite podcasts are sold. So please support the crew by liking, rating, sharing, and subscribing.
Cool. So next topic of our double header is the series finale or season finale, because we don't know if we're gonna have like another season, right? Look at this. These guys are awesome. They're like again, guys, we're working on our production, so we have Foley artists and
All right.
As you can tell, hopefully from that harmonic introduction,
Not as good as when we did The Mandalorian, but
No, not at all.
we practiced that one though.
Yes.
We'll try.
we are now going to talk about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, or should we say Captain America and Winter Soldier?
Thank you.
Indeed.
All right.
That's where we get to.
What did you guys think? Quick thoughts so that we can kind of get right into the discussion. I can start off real quick. I thought it was awesome. I thought that every single episode of the season was really good, but I thought that the final episode is one of the most impactful pieces of comic book, film, I guess, that I've seen in a long time. It was a very important one, I believe. Yeah, who
I'll go next. I thought that as much as I liked WandaVision, this one definitely had the far superior ending. I also, oh no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh no, I remember now. I called it. I freaking called it.
Oh,
What's her name?
Sharon?
Agent Carter. I
Sharon
knew
Carter.
Sharon Carter. I called it, Eli.
I know.
I
Mhm.
called it. She is the power broker.
We definitely said
I
that
don't
on a
know.
prior episode.
I have some thoughts on that. Definitely.
Okay.
But aside from that, yeah, it was pretty good, especially where the themes were concerned. Uh, it was in a sense kind of predictable where it was going, but even though it was kind of predictable, I liked where it went. So I got to give Marvel credit for that.
okay.
So for me, we have to talk about how we say we rate our movies as fairly as we can, but also we definitely rate them with a sense of what we know we're getting, right? Because with Godzilla versus Kong, we knew we were getting a monster movie where two monsters were going to kick the crap out of each other. With Mortal Kombat, we knew we were going to get a bunch of dudes killing each other and fatalities and all that stuff. You know what you're getting, so you rate it based on maybe more entertainment value. Falcon and the Winter Soldier sits in a weird place for me because I think that what they were trying to give us isn't exactly what we got, and I have my opinions for why that happened. Um, to make it relatively short now, we can get into it later. There were some political themes that I thought they couldn't expand on enough because of the fact that Disney doesn't want to get too political. Okay, and we'll get to that for sure. For me, also,
Interesting.
I think
Very
the weird
interesting.
thing is that I didn't like Carly at all. I thought she was a completely flat character. I didn't think she was good as a villain or as a hero or anything really. I thought John Walker was better, but also I thought it was a little odd that he got to be the hero so quickly after doing something so heinous like 2 episodes prior. And I know that that's a product of this being only 6 episodes, but for me, there were a few little uneven things that happened like that. And there was some great moments in the first like 3.5 episodes for me. And I know that this is going to be somewhat controversial. I think the last episode kind of fell flat for me, and I can get into why as we get into greater detail later on. But that's kind of my short opinion right now. Walt?
Alrighty then. I think I've made my opinion well known that this series was probably the thing that I was looking the most forward to in 2021. I really had high hopes for Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I'm gonna put my black hat on again. I hope it fits the second time
Wow, really?
because
Oh,
um,
That's
I
surprising.
I was pretty disappointed with how this thing turned out, and I think I know the reason why. I think 6 episodes was way too short to provide any type of depth to the number of themes that they were trying to go for here. I think this could have included easily another 1 or 2 more episodes. I actually think you could have taken out a lot of the action from this last episode to focus on those themes. Um, it was kind of disjointed, and I had the sense after episode 5 that we were going to end up here because episode 5 still had so many things that were left out in the cybersphere in terms of wrapping up with this show. Clearly, Marvel has it down pat when it comes to the film universe. I think there's still a little work to be done with the TV side of things. I don't think they've quite nailed it with these 2 series just yet. I think it's a work in progress. I think there's a lot of positive things that came out of this show. But then again, and I look at one particular plot point that was brought up in episode 2 and then not talked about until episode 5. And I think that is one of the failings of this show is that there's too many things going on that didn't it didn't have enough time to flesh out. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was best when it was a character study, when you were dealing with, the characters, their motivations, and things of that nature. The action was really secondary to it, but especially in this last episode, that character study took a seat back for the action, and I think it was to the detriment of that episode and the series as a whole. Eli.
I have, basically the same thing. I felt that a lot of the show was very positive, and I felt that it really it really exceeded my expectations, really. But and with the last episode, I mean, I felt that that was a great episode, but I felt that for a lot of the villains, mainly the villains like Carly Morgenthau and even Sharon Carter, who isn't necessarily a villain, or maybe, but I felt that there wasn't characters weren't as fleshed out as the main, which it obviously makes sense because we have this whole thing with like the political things and like all of that. But I felt that some of these villains needed to be fleshed out a little bit more, especially Sharon Carter, because the way they put her as the power broker just it wasn't.
It's not left field. It's
Hmm?
not.
No, it obviously wasn't left field because we knew that was going to happen, but that she just doesn't,
Doesn't
know,
serve her character, especially what we've known about
Yeah.
her in the previous film.
it doesn't really
But that doesn't really apply.
it does though.
Well, I mean, when I say that, 5 years of being on the run, that's going to change a person.
But it doesn't serve her
The show
character
didn't-
because
the show didn't really hit on that.
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
well,
nothing
Glossed over it.
there's nothing to say that she is the power broker. The only reason that you could have possibly thought that she was the power
there
broker,
were things. I mean, maybe it wasn't out there in your face,
Okay,
but there were
but
things.
no, what I'm trying to say here is that she doesn't fit the character. She's just not she doesn't seem like a villain at all, and that just
But
doesn't
we don't,
fit the power broker, at least for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
well,
I
I think-
hijacked your point there.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I think the issue I had with Sharon Carter from the jump is how come Bucky gets a pardon and she doesn't? Bucky murdered like dozens and dozens of people. She was just like, hey, Cap, you're cool. Cap is fine in America. Everybody's cool with Cap in the Avengers. Why is it just like Sharon Carter who gets like kicked out of the crew?
Because
was
she
really
stole
silly.
the shield. She stole the shield.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just that either, though. I think it's because
No, I
she
know I'm
wanted
being
to clearly,
facetious,
yeah, clearly she wanted to become the power broker. She saw an opportunity to become the power broker, and she took it.
But I think the
You know?
show.
I think that, like, you know, she doesn't want. She clearly didn't even want the pardon either. Like,
I don't
when
think
she came
so.
through, she's like,
I think the
I
show
don't know.
made clear that was the thing that made her jaded. That America turned its back on her. To me, I think the show was definitely hinting
She
at that.
is doing a really good job of being a spy agent and making you believe that's her motivation.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I also don't
She
think
gets a pardon, and the first thing that she does is she calls all her clients to be able to line them up. I have all the secrets.
I also don't think that's her. She's a Skrull. She's setting up Secret Invasion. That's not the real Sharon Carter. That's another thing.
Yes,
But
because
also-
you know what?
that would
Yo,
make more
yo,
sense. That would make more sense.
Yeah, that would make
No,
more
but-
sense than the motivation that they gave her. Like, oh, America turned its back on me, and like it loves all the Avengers and all the other heroes, but me, you know, like you don't get a pardon, and I'm so sad about this. Yeah, maybe they hinted that she was supposed to be a nefarious power broker, but I think that's kind of speaking to what Walt said. There were too many odd characterizations that didn't, and Eli said this too. They didn't really bring it to a focus for some of these characters. They were just kind of all over the place. And I think Sharon was one of the best examples on the show.
I think that we do have to kind of take in mind that this is a universe that's being built, and it's not the last that we're going to see of them. Their storylines aren't done. So I think if we keep the expectation of having them fully fleshed out in this one season, as if like that's the only thing that we're going to get from them, then we're going to be disappointed. I think that we got like
what movie? She's been around for like more than
Yeah,
5
she has
years, and they
been,
haven't fleshed
but,
her out
yeah.
at all. And she was a major character on the show, and you're still not going to flesh her out. I mean, and Marvel's
but they
usually
are
better
I
about.
think that they are though. Like just because she was a character in Captain America, it doesn't mean that they didn't flesh her out then because she was just a character. She was just a side piece. In this one, they set her up for a bigger role as obviously she got the end credits scene, you know what I mean?
And I just think
So
it
they
was
set her up for a
poorly
major role
done.
now.
But she
I don't
wasn't
know.
even
know?
really set up.
She was a boring character for me from start to finish. So
Yeah,
that's
Interesting.
I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy her or Carly. I thought both of those villains were kind of
So
lame.
I wanted to kind of, it's very interesting. I thought, I thought Carly was a great character, and it's fun. I actually think that I want to push back. I guess I'm the one that's going to be the odd man out here, because I kind of want to push back on both of your points. I thought Carly was a pretty good representation of misguided fervor and aggression, or whatever it is. And I thought that the themes that Marvel kind of touched on and stuff, I thought that it was done really, really well. I thought it was done in a way where it's like, they touched on it, I felt like they put it at the forefront without taking away from the fact that this is a superhero show. At the very, at the outset of this, we know that this is a superhero show and a comic book entity, right? If they turn it into a political, thematic kind of show first, then it makes the whole fact that it's a comic book show secondary. And I think that they did the right thing in making sure that we still know that this is an action comic book show before anything else.
That's where, though, see, that to me, that's the biggest area of pushback. And I think, Walt, I think you might agree with me, because you were nodding your head when I was saying this earlier. This is Disney trying to have its cake and eat it too with these themes, because they wanted to kind of introduce, the themes of racism and like American militarism and supremacy of different kinds. And they kind of touch on it, but because Disney doesn't want to ruffle too many feathers, they don't get too deep into it. And what they did instead, that I really didn't like about the last episode, is instead of what they did so well in the first 2 episodes, for me especially, where they showed what the characters were thinking through what they did and through dialogue that wasn't exposition. By the time we got around to the end, you have Cap, because I'm going to call him Cap now. He's Captain America, right? Sam is Captain America. By the end, he's just giving a speech. Like, that was silly to me. Like, that was pure exposition.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, why is he
Okay,
giving
okay.
a speech?
Okay,
Like,
okay.
what is that all about? What is that?
I
That
gotta
was weird.
I gotta jump in here. I really do, because Wolfie was pushing back on us.
He was all
Jose
speeches
was pushing
by the
back on
end.
Wolfie. I'm gonna push back on both of y'all here. Okay.
Nope.
I've got 3 things I gotta say. First of all, Carly Morgenthau. I'm not saying that she's a bad villain. I actually enjoyed her villainous, quote unquote, in this show. I just don't think they gave her enough time. Because again,
Really?
this is where I like Marvel, what they've done with their villains. They introduce a villain here whose motivation, the reason why she's doing it, if you really, really think about it, makes sense. The problem that we have is the way that they go about doing it. They did that with Killmonger. You can say they did it with Thanos, right? Again, if you really, really think about how they're thinking, it makes sense. She has almost what you want to say a noble cause. It's the way that she goes about doing it. And again, if we had more episodes where we really dug into that character, it would make sense.
Yo.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. Second, I'm gonna go to Jose now.
Can I just make a quick
Because-
point about Carly?
Quick.
Just to add to
I'm
that?
on a roll. I'm on a roll.
Yeah, I don't
but
want
come on.
I don't want
Okay.
I don't want to cut you off, but the thing that I kind of have an issue with is they had a bunch of instances where they wanted to make the characterization a little bit more complicated, and they had her like crew, the other Flag Smashers, looking at her with doubt whenever she started to get a little too crazy. They never really explored that. They never
Right.
had they had these little conversations, but nobody except for Sam was like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do this. Do it this way." And they always had those moments of doubt with her crew. They never did anything with them. I'm sorry. Go ahead with the rest of your point.
I'm going to get back to that point on my third point, and I'm going to try and make this really, really quick because I know we have a whole bunch of other things that we want to get into.
Mhm.
But the second point is the Disneyfication of this thing. I don't think that the reason that they pushed back is because they don't want to get too political, because if that's the case, you never should have introduced it in the first place. I think what it is, again, we're talking about 6 episodes that they could not flesh this out because there is something innately interesting about Isaiah Bradley's story. And you know what? I'm going to say this right now. If Disney doesn't make an Isaiah Bradley series, then you are missing a huge opportunity to really tell a great story. Okay? I think what it is, again, the short form of this series kind of killed every plot line in this story, because you introduce Isaiah Bradley, and I know from personal experience, because there was a lot of people that I spoke to about this, everybody was excited about that storyline. And you don't come back to it until episode 5. And then in episode 6, he does this whole thing where it's like, well, you know what? No self-respecting black man would ever hold a shield and become Captain America. And in episode 6, it was like, okay, that's cool. Which is a total thing, right?
No,
Hold on. I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm on a roll, right? And so that to me is like, you know what? If you had more time with it, you can really play around with that theme. The third thing I want to say is, and this is going to be the last thing, and then you guys can skewer me on what I just said, because I know you're dying to, right? That speech that Sam said at the very end was probably one of the most impactful things in the series, because you know what? Not only did it show he had the best arc, and he should have. He had the best arc in the story, because he went from, being one of these guys where he couldn't even get a loan, and then having that interaction with Isaiah Bradley and questioning the whole purpose of Captain America. At the very end, that speech shows that he understands that Captain America is not about patriotism. Captain America is about justice and doing the right thing. And I think that speech kind of internalized and brought it out to everybody to understand what Captain America is. And the other point that he made, which I'm going to end with, goes back to Carly Morgenthau. When he told that GRC politician, you know what? You keep using these words, terrorism, terrorists and thugs and things like that. What do you think they think of you?
Hold on.
Oh man.
Okay, right?
I
You guys
can't
thought it
agree
was
with that.
over, right?
I told you I was going to put on my black hat on this one.
You guys thought it was over, right? No, it's not over. I'm going to push back on all of y'all. Carly Morgenthau. I hated her character. I just plain out hated her.
Awful
and not
character.
for the reasons that you guys said, but it's a little bit different, because I felt that she had no motivation. Hold on.
What? I can't agree with that.
Hear me out.
That I can't
Hear me
agree
out.
with. Okay.
Because I felt that at the beginning, she sort of had a noble cause. No, she did have a noble cause, but towards the end, she sort of lost track of it. And I felt that
But
that's what happens with a lot of those causes,
And
though. That's what happens with a lot of causes.
She was
And I think
literally,
I don't know,
she
man.
was
She was
literally
more
donating
radicalized.
supplies a week before, and then she murdered a bunch of innocent people.
I
Like,
just felt
it's
that
not characterized really well.
But I think
It's
she
not.
was more radicalized.
And then
with
she
that
talked about how
conversation
she
that
didn't
with
want to.
Sam.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Let's not
Yeah,
talk
go
over each
ahead.
other.
I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say this. I think she became more radicalized when she had that interaction with Sam and got interrupted by John Walker. Because I think at that point, she was kind of coming back toward the fold and was betrayed at that moment. And that made her further radicalized. So I see where she went off the rails, because it was that particular moment.
I felt that she had no motivation, because she lost track of it. But that should have been fleshed out. That should have been fleshed out, and she
that's
wasn't
why we
fleshed
needed
out.
more episodes.
No, no.
How is she?
No.
How is she a
here's
relatable
the
character if she never doubts the evil things that she does, except when she talks to Sam? Every other thing she does,
but it's
she's
relatable to
super
who,
sure
though.
about
It's
how evil
it's
she is.
relatable. It's relatable to who. That's the issue, right? Because I want to push back on all that stuff, and I guess this is going to be just a whole pushback segment. But see, here's the thing, right? All right, but hold on. I gotta step in, because there's too many points that are kind of, more or less the same, and it's that they weren't fleshed out. I think that, like, for example, when you said that like we saw her coming back to the fold when Sam was talking to her and stuff like that, and then they got interrupted. That is an example and representation of what they want to show, that like, hey, if you listen to them, maybe you can get them to kind of come to your side.
I agree.
And because we don't listen and because we don't give them a chance is how they become radicalized.
Yep.
I think that we didn't see her develop into that and just get radicalized as a representation of what happens when we don't listen. And at the end, it just keeps turning into that, right? Or rather, it keeps kind of getting pushed more to that line, to the point that she ends up dying when she didn't need to die, you know? And then to that point is why I think that it was great that Sam had that speech, because it goes to show like, hey, everybody just stop and talk to each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's stop fighting. That's why I think that the speech was good. And it was, and the speech was more on the sense of, hey, like I understand that you don't understand our plight, you know, but if you just stop for a moment and listen, maybe we can kind of come to an agreement. And the biggest issue, the other thing too, is that Sam is showing that, like, I think that the whole representation, the whole theme of the show is that, especially with his conversation with Isaiah Bradley and his whole thing, like when he said, you know, if I was in his shoes, I'd probably think the same way too. But that doesn't mean that's how I'm going to do it. He chose to go about it a different way, to show that like what you went through is not to be diminished, but how we're going about it doesn't make it right either. You know, there's a third option, you know, and I think that that's kind of the message. And that's why I don't think that Disney was just trying to touch on it. I think that Disney was trying to create a conversation and allow the fans, us, to speak about it and not tell us what to think. And that's why I thought that was pretty good.
Well, here's why it's pure exposition to me. And then I'm sorry, Eli, I cut you off. I'll let you go.
Nice.
Look, the problem that I had, well, I'm going to go back to Carly and then I'm going to leave her alone because we've been picking on her. But again, I have to say, when your character says half a dozen times that you don't want to hurt innocent people, you just want to hurt the people who did this to you, the governments, the GRC, and all you do is kill innocent people, the characterization is off. It's not even saying that like she's accidentally doing these things or she's confused. She willingly and knowingly kills innocent people when she constantly says that that's not what she wants to do. I can see that being a good disconnect if written a little better. When as written here, I thought it was eminently poor. The speech was well written, but completely out of place, in my opinion. You know what I was thinking when I was watching that speech? I was thinking Rocky IV, if I can change and you can change, then anybody can change. And that is not a good comparison to make for this movie, in my opinion, because that moment was cool, but it was, you know, it was also played in a very different way thematically than this show was. So for me, especially when, again, you look at the first couple of episodes where everything is done through situations that the character is put in. For instance, you talk about Sam being at that bank and trying to get that loan. That was an exposition. That was really well written and excellent writing. But when you have to hammer every theme and every lesson of the show into one final speech, I'm sorry, I'm done right there. You can't do that to me. That's pure exposition. As no matter how cool the speech sounds, no matter how great the themes are, no matter how well written the actual dialogue is, pure exposition at that point. And it is a product of Walter saying they didn't have enough time. They just didn't have enough time.
I don't know.
And then it's
I don't know. I'm gonna send it to Eli real quick, but see, the thing is, I don't necessarily agree with that, because sometimes you have to throw it into people's faces in order to, you know, get the message direct. It's cool to have just a piece that's like, hey, let's break for a moment and speak directly to the audience, basically, because the next step would have been to like just break the fourth wall and speak directly, which would have been cool too.
I don't know,
but I don't disagree with
technique.
That, so.
Can I just say
it was bad in Wonder Woman and basically everywhere else, where the character just does a final speech that makes everybody figure out what's good in life or all that.
I'm just gonna say one thing, and then
that's not how real life works.
I'm going to say one thing, and then Eli's going to jump in.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're talking about exposition to the audience. there was also another audience that was watching that, and that was the audience of the MCU. And I think that's important to understand, that he's saying, you know what, I'm a black man, I'm Captain America. I know, and he even mentioned it, I know the stairs are coming, but you got to listen to my words because this is what I'm going to represent. Eli, what do you want to say about that?
But I get that you wanna like put that theme out there, but like at the same time, it's like I have to agree with Uncle Jose, honestly, because it's just so out of place. Why would you start that in the middle in the middle of after you just like fought some bad guys and stuff? And it just seems so really out of place for you to just start lecturing people. And I get it. I love the speech. I so agree with it. And I really, really, really agree with it. But it was just the wrong place and the wrong time. But it was also sort of the right place and the right time. But it was sort of out of place.
But he has a camera in his face.
Maybe he could have done it in his speech afterwards.
Yes, in
where
a
they
speech
made him
afterwards.
Captain America officially.
Yes, that would have been much
But
better.
I don't think they would actually make him officially Captain America.
But
Maybe not.
It's still,
But they
it would have
also
been-
agreed
it's
with
still
everything
possible.
else he said at the end of the movie. So that's
But
why
I
the
think-
characterization doesn't work. They were like, your ideas are all wonderful and all great, but we're not going to make you Black Captain America, even though we agree with everything you say and you save the world.
I don't see a ceremony the way that John Walker got, where they're rolling him out as Captain America, because you know what, he wasn't sanctioned by them. He kind of stole the shield, right? He took it from John Walker. I don't see
That
a
shield is way too
ceremony.
important.
Yeah, but I don't see a ceremony where the U.S. government is going to say, "Hey, this is now our new Captain America." I just don't see that coming.
And that's a product of not fleshing out because there's not enough
Thank you.
time.
Thank you again. This should have been an 8.
The question is that
series.
necessary though? The question is that necessary? I don't think that Captain America should be a government symbol. That's the thing, and that's the point.
I agree, but that's what I'm saying. You know, we're saying, well,
But I
he
think
coulda
that's
had
the
another-
message.
He could have had another speech at any other time. No, I don't think that's possible. I think he took the opportunity with a camera in his face to say what he had to say, because most likely he's not going to get that opportunity any other way. He's not going to have a press conference. He's not going to. So
really forced.
this was
to
the
me.
time for him to say what he had to say.
It felt really forced to me. I don't know. I
AJ, what do
can't
you
get
think?
over it.
Well, yeah, I honestly kind of agree.
With who?
I'm going to echo a lot of what you guys said already. The government certainly isn't going to be okay with it. They clearly went with John Walker for a reason. They took the shield from him for a reason. Or rather, he quote unquote offered it up, but come on.
were
They
asking
took
for
it from him.
Yeah, they were asking for it.
Yeah. And so that, again, the circumstances were there. People were paying attention to him right at that moment. Not only the people that are supposed to look up to him, but the people that matter, the people who are going to make those decisions eventually. It's not very often that guys like Captain America are face to face with those people. It's not. So that was like the literal perfect circumstance for him to go off on that very, very in-depth, very, the very meaningful rant.
T'Challa has a platform, and he used it. Sam Wilson does not.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. When you have to
That's
tell
why
everybody
he
the
took it
themes
at
of the
that
show at the end, I think that's bad. I really can't get over it. You can't summarize the themes of a show and expect that to be good writing. I think that's awful writing.
But it's not.
I don't think it's awful.
I don't think. See, that's the thing. Like, you're looking at it purely from a film standpoint. I look at it purely as let me get a message directly across to people that are paying attention right here and right now.
Yep.
Look,
Like if I have that, like, okay, MCU has a platform. It's their Disney Plus service, right? Okay. What better way than to use it to like speak directly to everybody watching, as opposed to fleshing it out? Because what if people don't watch the whole series? What if people don't come to the series after finding out that, like, hey, this whole thing is about just these themes?
But
right?
they knew that from episode
As
1,
opposed-
though. Everybody knew that. They were complaining about that from episode 1.
I understand that. I understand that. But if you drill it down to like just this one moment that everybody's going to be watching, okay, why not take that opportunity? That's why I don't think
that doesn't make
I don't think that it's wrong, and I don't think it's bad writing.
If people aren't going to finish the show, how are they going to get to this moment? That doesn't make any sense if you think about it. If they're not
But
going to
if you
finish it,
make-
they're never going to get to episode 6 where they get to see this speech and get to see
I
all
just
the team
completely
summarized.
disagree that like the speech is bad and misplaced. I think that I think that it was probably one of the most heartfelt moments. That and the moment that we saw Isaiah Bradley getting honored in the museum.
Oh my God,
Oh,
that was
I mean, that almost brought
That was a good
that
moment.
brought
Bring
tears. Yeah, I got emotional. with
That was a better moment.
Yeah,
I
same.
don't know.
Yeah.
I can't get on a summary in the final few minutes. It's just not going to work for me. I mean, I know you guys have your opinion, but summarizing that stuff in the end is, regardless of what your point is. If your point is to make a political statement, then just make the whole show a political statement. Don't wait until the last episode to really drive that point
but
home.
They didn't. Yeah, Eli. Eli's probably gonna say exactly what I'm thinking.
The whole show was basically trying to get that message across, because
Exactly.
it was like with shoot,
That's my point, though.
I just
Isaiah
lost
Bradley?
it. Yeah, Isaiah Bradley, right? That whole thing, that whole connection between Isaiah Bradley and Falcon was like, or I should say Captain America, right? That whole connection was to build up to where he had to stand up and fight against supremacy and stuff and all of that, right? So it wasn't necessarily at the last minute. This has been going on since the very beginning of the show.
The way I look at it, if each episode is a word in a sentence, this is a 6-word sentence with that speech being the exclamation mark.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. But I think that we should, any final thoughts? Rating on the whole season, I'm assuming. Yes, is that what we're doing?
Yeah. We can do that.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. Who wants
All
to
right.
go first?
Who wants to start?
Okay.
None of us. Did we get a little too serious?
It's you know what it is. It's a difficult show to rate because of the unevenness of it. Like I said, I was probably the most excited for the show, and I feel a little let down in terms of how the show went. There were some really, really high points, and I think the transformation from Sam Wilson going from the Falcon and having that epiphany of what it is to be Captain America, I think that was very, very well done. I think it was a high point of the series. But John Walker, his change to U.S. agent, and listen, I have to mention this. How weird that from episode 1 to 5, everybody hated this guy. And then episode 6 was like, yay, he's U.S. agent. Woohoo! Very, very strange how the internet works, right?
Hanging out with Elaine from Seinfeld.
Yeah, it's really, really weird. And you know what? I'm going to say one thing about Elaine from Seinfeld, Countess Valenta, whatever, blah, 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 da, whatever her name is.
I've never heard of her.
Val.
Honestly.
I think, and this is where the pandemic kind of, killed it for me. Because remember, Black Widow was supposed to come out before Winter Soldier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And she was supposed to be introduced in that movie first. I wonder if the impact would have been different if we did see it in that, that order.
I think it would.
Because then we would really see what she's all about instead of trying to figure out what the heck she's doing with U.S. Agent. But like I said, Carly Morgenthau, a character that in my opinion, should have been fleshed out better. John Walker, another guy who probably should have been fleshed out a little bit better, especially in those final moments, because that turn didn't make sense for me. Bucky, as good as he was in this show, was relegated to the background for a lot of it. So like I said, there's a lot of unevenness in this show for me, and that's why I say I think Marvel and Disney still has a way to go in terms of the TV series and nailing that down. So for me, I'm going to give it a solid 7. I wish it was higher, but I can't go any further than that.
I'm probably going to be the other end of the spectrum a little bit from Walt, and it seems like everyone else's, kind of outlook. I thought that the show was really, really well done because the way that I looked at it is each character's development and reason for being in the show was very different from everyone else's. For me, Sam's whole arc is understanding his role in the world. After after Cap is gone, after being a black man in this world, being a black symbol in this world, and being a role model. He went from like not understanding why he was given the shield to understanding why he should take the responsibility. He went from understanding his roots and his past and the plight of his people to looking at it from a different perspective or what to do. Not necessarily joining in on their cause, but not joining in their method. I thought that that Bucky's whole thing with the show was basically paying penance and understanding that he doesn't have to live in his nightmare, which is basically the whole thing, which is something that I think that a lot of people in military, in the service, people that have like done bad things that now have to, try to live with themselves, through therapy and stuff. I thought that was a great, representation of what they go through and how they should deal with it, showing that like therapy isn't a bad thing. A lot of people still have like the stigma of like, therapy, I don't need therapy and all that stuff. And I think that that's something that's huge. But it's also, therapy is something that's done kind of in the background. And I think that it was, and also let's not forget that it's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, not the Winter Soldier and the Falcon, so, and there were setups for everyone else. I think that like the whole US agent thing is a perfect representation of how like our government uses the some people in the military in the wrong way, right? He's done something really, really bad, but some parts of our government and maybe our more clandestine services are like, well, this is an asset that we can manipulate, and he won't realize. He just thinks that we're giving him something great. So I think that there's plenty of things that are done to set up the rest, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every single episode thoroughly, and I enjoyed the message overall as well. I particularly enjoyed the message of like, hey, I understand you, I hear you, and I would feel exactly how you feel, but there are other ways to go about solving these issues. And that's, I think, what the overall message is for me. I give the show a 9 out of 10.
Ooh.
Yes, I would like more, but I didn't find anything wrong with anything that I saw. At no point did I feel like, oh, this episode kind of sucked. Like, whatever. Yeah, I just didn't think anything was particularly bad about it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you
Oh,
have
I was gonna throw it to Jose
Oh,
first, and then AJ, Eli. I want you guys to close it up.
Okay, so I kind of gave my thoughts as to why I think there's a lot of problems with the way that the show was written in the end. Some of it is just not really good writing, in my opinion. Some of it was lack of time. So I was going to give this actually a 6. I'm going to give it a 6.5 because I want to watch it again and see if something's wrong with the way that I'm looking at this. But I'll give you another example of why I don't get that point at the end, because I really have to harp on it. It kind of ruined the show for me. I have to say that's how bad it was for me. If you got to look at it this way, if you guys say that they're not going to give him the shield, they're not going to make him Cap officially, why did they honor Isaiah Bradley then? Wouldn't they do the same thing to him? Wouldn't they say, like, you're not important, we don't care about you, you were Cap at some point, but you're a black man and we're not going to give you that recognition? It's the same thing. It's inconsistent there. That's another huge inconsistency. And again, they listened to him for basically how to run the world. He said all these things in that speech. He said, you should do this instead of this. You should repatriate people in this way. They listened to him on how to run the entire friggin' world, and they're not going to give him the respect of making him Cap. To me, that's nonsense. That's bad writing right there. Because again, you have the respect for his opinion on Isaiah Bradley. You have the respect for his opinion on how the entire world should be run, but he's not Cap for you. No, that's really poor writing in my opinion, and that's why that exposition fails on every level for me. There's another reason why the exposition fails too, because, and here's another thing that kind of doesn't work, and where the characterization and the themes get problematic. Okay, because like we talked about John Walker basically killing somebody in broad daylight and getting away with it. There was a clear allegory that they were trying to put in there. Okay, the allegory was the same as like, you know, African American men getting killed by the police and it being caught on camera, and that being something that we could actually perhaps have consequences for now. And then again, nothing happens to this guy that kills somebody on camera in front of thousands of people, and they just let him get away with it and become a hero. How is that not problematic thematically? Really problematic in this day and age. That's very problematic. And again, I think bad writing. And I'll say this much, just to put it out there. I am going to watch it again, but I'm saying these things basically having watched it twice, because I would watch it the first time and then I'll watch it again with Claire, with my girlfriend. I'll watch the episode again. So I'm saying these things not having watched it once and maybe not understanding what I'm seeing. I don't think. This is after watching it twice, and I still find those things problematic. So to me, it's really hard to write your way out of those issues. And the show fell apart as a result. It was going to get maybe a 7.5 or an 8 before the last 2 episodes, really. And then the last 2 episodes for me had great moments. Don't get me wrong. There are some great moments in those episodes, but it just falls apart entirely in terms of making sense to me in those last 2 episodes. So, AJ.
So I'm just, I upon hearing that, I want to beat back against 2 things before I give my rating. And anyway. So with regard to the whole, his input on like how to run the world, okay, that's understandable. But I mean, at that point, he started to become an icon. And well, when you grow to be as big and as popular as that, you can't exactly ignore him entirely, but you can still not do certain things intentionally in order to
ignore Captain America. But again, I still think that's not accurate. They ignored Captain America and all these other people who saved the world.
But okay, I just want to. I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I really just need to talk about this, right? It's not his property though. The shield isn't Falcon's property. I mean,
it's not the government's either.
I mean, it's sorry, it's not the government's property, and that's the reason why they're not, I guess, inaugurating him as Captain America, and that's why they're not giving him the celebratory and all that he deserves and all that.
They gave Sharon Carter a public pardon. I could find a million reasons why that doesn't make sense. They gave her a public press conference for her pardon. None of this makes sense if you look at it. And gave her old job back with the quickness. They didn't even check what she was doing over the last few years or anything. I'm sorry, I can't see it working. Like, there's too many holes if you look at how characters act in other situations and then treat characters differently for no discernible reason in the writing, just because that's how they have to move the plot forward.
All right. The other point I wanted to bring up was the way they dealt with John Walker. Mm-hmm. In reality, honestly, that's kind of what would happen in modern. That's been what's happening in modern day. Sure, he killed someone on camera, and sure, he did get a slap on the hand, but that's all he got was a slap on the hand, and that's honestly what happens out there in the world already.
Yeah.
So that's not too far-fetched of a thing, in my opinion. That's another one of those,
that's where
we're going to point this out,
and Bucky and Sam had no issue working with him at the very end.
Yeah, they made him a hero after he murdered somebody with a shield. That's a lot. That's weird to me. I got to point out these holes because that's odd. Go ahead.
And so, just to wrap it up, again, I'm gonna be in the middle on this. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed a lot of what the show had to say, but it really did need that extra time. That just to put it in a bun. I'm gonna give it an 8. I wanted to give it a 7.5, but for me, the ending really kind of. I kind of disagree. I really like how they just put it in a nice little bow. So, yeah. What about you, Eli?
Here we go.
Oh god.
The corn
I can't
meter
stop
is
smiling. Stop looking at me like that. I can't stop
out. The
smiling.
corn meter is coming out.
Okay. I'm just gonna be completely honest here. It was good. The politics, I think the message was really, really, really reinforced and sent through. And I felt that they did it well. Yes, there were some plot points, and I felt that needed extra time to be fixed and worked on. But all in all, it was a great show. And is nobody gonna talk about freaking Zemo?
I was gonna say the same thing actually.
He's
We
the
did mention
freaking
Zemo.
highlight.
We did
Zemo
forget
was good.
Zemo.
Zemo was amazing, and I felt that. Here's the thing: I felt that his character was like a little bit cut short, at least in my
Especially
opinion, right?
that last episode.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, he
and
wasn't.
he was in jail. Yeah,
He wasn't even like a centerfold villain though either.
I know, and I just felt that I just wanted him to be there a little bit more. But the
I understand
villains,
what you're saying.
Zemo's Alfred, though.
I wish
Come
he were
on.
pulling some more.
Zemo's Alfred,
strings.
though. You got to give him props. Zemo's Alfred was awesome that last episode.
Alfred? Wait, what?
His main guy,
His butler.
his butler,
On the plane.
Oh, yeah.
who done blowed up the remaining super soldiers,
yeah.
which again was a weird thing. To
Oh shoot!
drop
I didn't even
into.
realize that was his butler.
Yes.
Yeah, that was his butler.
Oh,
That's why they
shoot.
showed Zemo afterwards, and he was like, "I've killed everybody." But again, see, that's kind of the problem because we get that as an afterthought, as opposed to, a little bit more on what happened.
I
You
would have
didn't
loved.
even realize it.
I would have loved to
you
see
know?
more agency from Zemo. Him
Yeah,
more
yeah,
involved
right.
in what happened in the plot. Maybe
2 more episodes would have done that. But
Yes.
whatever. Eli,
Um,
continue, please.
Mhm.
I hated the villains. I just absolutely hated them
Yeah.
all out.
Except for Baron
they-
Zemo.
Well, Baron Zemo,
I mean, he
was-
wasn't entirely.
he wasn't
a villain.
even
That was
really a villain.
really a
though.
villain.
But whatever.
What's your rating?
6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
It's
We're
not
about the same
entirely bad.
place.
Yeah, we're all in about the same place.
Well,
Yeah.
me and Eli are a little lower. You guys are about a 7.5, 8, right? With a 9. for
I
Wolfie.
think I was a 7, if I remember correctly.
And
But
you-
I'm
know,
the only
7, 8,
one that's
9.
truly in the middle.
yeah, 7, 8, 9,
7, 8,
exactly.
9.
And-
Yeah.
You know what? I just wanted to really just say something.
Mhm.
I agree with what you say. It's just that I feel that it's not a matter of poor writing, and I just it's the time and stuff.
Yeah.
Which aspect is not poor writing?
All-
I guess. Or
Everything,
just in general.
yeah,
Yeah.
just in general, except for like the whole thing with Walker and
I think the consensus, except for maybe Wolfie, is that this series would have benefited more from a little bit more runtime.
100%.
I think that's where we are.
Yeah.
All right, so that being said, we're wrapping up this episode. I thought this was an awesome episode. We got to talk about Mortal Kombat, and we got to talk about Captain America and the Winter Soldier. So that being said, Jose, take us out, man.
Bum, 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 bum. All right, yes.
Exactly.
Thanks everybody for joining us for our episode of Mortal Kombat and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Everybody, we really enjoyed this episode. We thought that it was a great time. So please, definitely check us out on future episodes. The best way to do that is to like, rate, share, and subscribe to the Get Geek podcast. So please do that. As noted before, we were recording remotely this week, so any sound issues or artifacts, please let us know. You can reach out to us on Instagram at Get Geek Podcast, and you can find us on all your favorite social media platforms at Get Geek Podcast. Check it out. Look us up. Also, check out last week's episode where we talked about Cyberpunk 2077, and we basically talked about how we think about it several months after its release. And check out our gaming channels. We have a Twitch now, Get Geek Gaming. Check out our YouTube. It's also Get Geek Gaming. We are going to be doing a live stream of Cyberpunk 2077. We did one actually a few days ago. We're going to do another one, me and Eli. So yeah, check it out. Get Geek Gaming. We're going to be adding some more to our geek cred there. So y'all, please check it out. And from there, I guess I really only have one last thing left to say, and that is stay geeky, my friends.
It is no longer Falcon, but Captain America.
Captain America and the
Not Captain.
Bucky Barnes.
And the
And the
Bucky
Bucky
Barnes.
Barnes.
Bucky Barnes.
Hail Hydra.
Oh,
Hydra.